Get ready to reimagine the future of humanity and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, hosted by Dr. David Gruder, an internationally renowned integrative psychologist, human potential expert, author, and social change catalyst, as he delves into the most urgent issues of our time. With the world facing unprecedented challenges and social and political divides growing deeper, it's time to take action. Each episode of this groundbreaking series will empower you with invaluable insights, strategies, and tools to heal these divisions and restore personal freedom and societal well-being. Whether you're a concerned citizen, a courageous leader, an influential figure, or an ambitious entrepreneur, Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours will guide you on a transformative journey. Discover your unique role in creating a brighter future for yourself and society at large. Dr. David Gruder will draw upon his extensive knowledge and experience to provide practical solutions for shaping the world we live in. With his passionate exploration of social change, he will help you navigate through the complexities of our time and inspire you to make a meaningful impact. So, prepare yourself for an eye-opening experience as we delve deep into the heart of the matter. Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours will challenge your perspectives, ignite your imagination, and equip you with the tools you need to reimagine and redefine the world around you. The time to transform our future is now. Join us on this incredible journey and enter a new era of possibility. For more information on Dr. David Gruder and the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, visit www.rhfy.ca. Welcome to Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, where together, we create a brighter tomorrow. Now, here is the host of Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, Dr. David Gruder.
Welcome back to the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Dr. David Gruder, the polymath of human potential and societal psychotherapist who equips leading-edge leaders, influencers, helping professionals, and you with impactful resilience that makes it possible for humanity's most spiritually elevated future to emerge at last. And the title of this episode is Primal Dating: Radical Wisdom to Elevate Relationship Building. Why is modern dating so impossibly broken? Well, the surprising answers have far-reaching consequences on a civilizational scale. Evolutionary psychology reveals our ancient attraction wiring and blows the lid off of cultural myths about dating and relationships to give us a powerful lens for rethinking relationship formation. You're about to rethink how relationships form, discover how to sustain healthier connections, and tap into a treasure trove of practical sanity-saving ways to date and love. Forging hard-to-find wisdom in dating's chaos, meet Tim Ash, an acknowledged authority on evolutionary psychology, persuasion, and digital marketing. He's a sought-after international keynote speaker, advisor to senior executives, and the best-selling author of several books, including his latest, Primal Dating: The Unflinching Evolutionary Psychology Guide to Modern Relationships. As the founder of a digital marketing agency, he helped to create over $1.2 billion for companies like Google, Expedia, eHarmony, Facebook, American Express, Canon, Nestle, Humana, Siemens, and Cisco. Yikes. Tim has been hailed by Forbes as a top 10 online marketing expert and by Entrepreneur Magazine as an online marketing influencer to watch. He's now exposing primal truths behind attraction, dating, and meaningful relationships. Dump useless dating advice. Tim is about to dive deep into our ancient wiring to reveal why modern relationships feel so impossibly broken and how to sustain healthier connections in a swipe-obsessed world. Welcome to Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, Tim.
Thank you, David. It's great to be with you.
It's wonderful to have you. And in this first segment, we'll look at symptoms people experience, but might not recognize, or clues that their dating and relationship building approaches are flawed. But first, Tim, how did you get interested in evolutionary psychology and applying that wisdom to to dating, rather, aging, to
Well, I'm
dating?
doing both at the same time, but mostly the aging part, not applying it to dating. uh, well, I've always had an interest in the human brain and how it works. So one of my undergraduate degrees at University of California, San Diego, was actually cognitive science along with computer engineering. And then I stayed for 7 more years in the AI program in computer science. So early days of that. But I've kind of come back around after applying it to marketing to studying psychology, and the root of psychology is evolutionary psychology, how our brains evolved and the specific environment they evolved in. So I find that to be just something that's very widely applicable. You can apply it to sales, to personal development, to leadership, to better communities, to politics. So I just try to lean these days into things that are widely applicable, and that's what I call wisdom.
Nice, nice. Great summary. Well, in this episode's next segment, we'll get into root causes of what we'll cover during this segment. But first, what are the symptoms that indicate someone is operating from a flawed template for dating and relationship building?
Well, I would say that the symptoms are actually wider than just what's happening at a personal level. And so my previous book was called Unleash Your Primal Brain, Demystifying How We Think and Why We Act. It was an overview of evolutionary psychology. And I had a chapter in there about mating differences and how men are different and women are different and so on. And so I thought I'd focus on that in this new book. But what I found is that this goes way beyond the personal. I mean, we're seeing, like you mentioned earlier, like civilization ending, really things going on. There's massive frustration at the individual level, inability to find acceptable partners for dating, and so on. There are deaths of despair and suicide among young men, especially. There are culture wars. You see these red pill, extreme, aggressive men's views, pitched against feminist, shock warriors on the other side. And there's actually a decline in all intimate activities. This is, not just sex. I mean, you'd think marriage is declining. We all know that, but relationship formation, having children, even having sex, the number of men under 30 that haven't had sex in the last year has tripled in the last decade to 30%. So something is really, really going off the rails, and that leads to, I believe, political radicalization, as well as plummeting fertility rates, and that's upending our whole kind of capitalism, for better or for worse, and our economic models. We're about to plunge into declining populations that are going to go down as fast as population growth has been going up for the last several thousand years. So we're at this very painful, disconnected point, and a lot of it has to do with relationship formation.
Mm-hmm. So we've got societal symptoms and individual symptoms. And
Yes.
I think the point that you've made about there being a decline in all forms of intimacy is really important. You know, friendship, quality, not to mention primary relationship, sexuality, all of those things, but really all varieties of you know, watered down relationship. And so if someone is not familiar with that, what are they going to be experiencing in themselves that they might not recognize is a clue that they have been programmed in an unuseful way around having relationships and doing dating and things like that? What are their individual symptoms?
Well, I think that, and we'll talk about the root causes of some of that later, but the symptoms are that there's obviously huge frustration. You can't find the right partners. There's also all kinds of value judgments that are being put on other people. You don't live up to my expectations. And I think that's a huge disconnect. Just like we have political polarization, like the men's and women's positions have gotten further and further from each other. The other side is saying, "Are you freaking kidding me? That's what you actually expect or want in a relationship? It's just not going to happen." And that's happening on both sides, and causing a lot of pain and spilling out into attitudes. I call it poisoning of attitudes about the other gender, where we're looking for scapegoats, we're looking for bad guys, and the other side, quote unquote, is the problem. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I agree about the scapegoats, and I think, you know, the the piece of what you were just saying that strikes my attention and I think warrants us going a little bit deeper on is about the can't live up to my expectations, which is not only because of poisoning of attitudes about the other gender, but in heterosexual relationships, what I've seen, and I want to find out if you're seeing something similar to or different from this, is a tendency, an unconscious tendency for people in heterosexual relationships to want their partner to be like them, meaning if I'm a man, I want a woman to be my best boyfriend, or if I'm a woman, I want a man to be my best girlfriend, when that's not how we're wired if
yes.
we're in a heterosexual kind of relationship.
Yeah, I think what we're doing is we're essentially overloading relationships. And what I mean by that is, okay, I want you to be my lover, my best friend, the parent of my children, the financial provider, enjoy the same hobbies, the same friend groups, watch the same movies, and enjoy the same cultural activities. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's a lot to put on one person. We were never designed for that. So one of the, I don't want to jump to any cures for this, but one of the suggestions that my brilliant co-author Limor Gottlieb and I came up with is stop overloading relationships. You really need to have a clear difference between what you want and your little, what you're ordering from the boyfriend or girlfriend buffet, and what you actually need. And the way that that I approach that is, think about it this way: what do you need in an intimate relationship that cannot be met in any other way? That's a
Hmm.
powerful reframe, I believe, because
Yeah.
I go to my men's group weekly. I can go hiking with other people. I can go enjoy an art show or music. I don't need my intimate partner to provide all of those things.
Right. Um, wow. So let me unpack a little bit of this. Let's see. First of all, the the whole idea of overloading relationships is a kind of a variation on "be my everything," right?
Exactly right.
And
Forever, by the way, forever.
be my everything forever. And so what has happened is that confluence has replaced interdependence. So confluence is where there's this complete overmerging between two people that is misunderstood to be healthy relationship. And at the other extreme, if we talk about polarization on a societal level, or on a different level in relationships, you've got confluence on the one side, and then at the other extreme you have counterdependence, where people are saying, well, I don't need relationships, so they don't know how to
Yes.
go deep in relationships. So you've got this tension between these two opposites, and you also have people not coming to relationship with a full cup. They're coming to relationships from a needy place of you've got to fill my cup for me, as it were. And so, as you know, the rest of this episode is going to dive into the root causes of what Tim and I just discussed, and what to look for in a solution, and ultimately Tim's version of that solution. After a short break, my groundbreaking guest, evolutionary psychology expert Tim Ash, and I will explore less recognized reasons behind why modern dating is so impossibly broken and relationships along with that. I'm Dr. David Gruder. This is the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and we'll be back momentarily. Welcome back. Before the break, my guest, Tim Ash, told us about symptoms that people experience when their approach to dating and relationship building doesn't result in the relationships they yearn for. In this segment, as you know, we'll dive into under-recognized root causes of this, which evolutionary psychology reveals. So, Tim, as we look into those most overlooked root causes, I'd like you to also start with a definition of what evolutionary psychology is.
Sure, David. Evolutionary psychology is basically retracing the arc of all life on Earth to see where we picked up various behaviors and thought processes, and so on. So, there's some things we share with insects, like dopamine. That's just how do you meter out energy to chase goals. Or there's some things we share with other mammals, some things only with other primates, and some things at the very tail end of our evolution are uniquely and bizarrely human. So you have to kind of retrace that whole arc in order to understand where your behaviors are coming from.
Yeah, beautiful, concise definition of evolutionary psychology. And my footnote as a psychologist is that, at least in my day, back in the Middle Ages, when I went through grad school, evolutionary psychology was not something that was attended to. So I think it's an important thing for not only the public to be aware of, but for people in the mental health professions to be aware of. What does evolutionary psychology tell us about the root causes of these struggles that people are having?
Well, let's kind of reset back to the Serengeti a couple 100,000 years ago on the plains of East Africa where we evolved. And let's say some obvious things out loud. Now, to me, these things are as obvious as gravity, but culturally, I know I'm going to get pushback for some folks about this. Men and women are different. Okay. Not at the level of human dignity, not at the level of respect, but their men are 25% larger. They have 15 to 20 times as much testosterone. So in any species where you have significant physical and behavioral differences between the genders, they're more specialized roles in effect. And so let's start with an acknowledgement of that. So what does that mean? Well, the cartoonish version that we're all familiar with is that men had to go out and hunt. Why would you put your weaker, slower people to go hunt and your food then would depend on them, right? So you have to have the aggressive, stronger people go out and hunt. Women, meanwhile, are taking care of uniquely helpless babies. Humans aren't fully mentally developed till the age of 25 or so. So they had to take care of helpless blobs, little noodles that just hung out and built their brains because their bodies would demand too much energy to build. So you have this basic asymmetry. So you could say the basic difference between men and women is risk tolerance. Men are designed to take risk and perform for women. Women design men in order to be better performers. That's the evolutionary kind of stair stepping that's happening. And so,
Tim, I'm going to stop
yeah,
you there for a second because that's so important. I'd like you to repeat that.
sure. Men and women designed each other to be better. And for women, that means being selective investors and placing their bet on just one best single man that's going to be a long-term provider while she's helplessly taking care of the child. And for men, men are designed to be the best aggressive, active agents in the world and providers that they can possibly be. That's the basic wiring. And anyone who's denying that, I'm sorry, those are your cultural beliefs. We'll get to that I think are getting in the way. So, what are some of the root causes of today's problems? Well, you start messing with that. One is you change the risk of getting pregnant. when the pill came around in the 1960s and women took control of their reproductive destiny, they could avoid or delay pregnancy, then the risk reward ratio changed for women. As a result, they were able to enter the workforce and achieve very high levels of educational and financial attainment. Right now, in major cities in the US, unless a woman decides to step off and have a child, they're out earning men. And that's great. And then 60-40 ratio for, I believe, bachelor's degrees in the US, again, awarded to women. So that's all great. But one of the evolutionary things, like I said, is that women want the best, single best option they can get. And that means that the man has to be doing better than them, at least as well as them, but ideally better than them. And so if women all of a sudden over a couple of generations have surged in terms of what they've been able to accomplish and what they can do to provide for themselves, it's thrown this really abrupt wrench into the competitiveness of men as a result.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'm going to kind of double back to one of the earlier comments you made in this segment about the Serengeti Plains, because it is controversial and I think it deserves to be underlined. So, men and women are different at the level of biology.
Exactly.
And that creates physical and psychological differences. And those differences end up being reflected in roles they fill and ways they connect. And denying the biological overlay doesn't do a good thing for people's understandings of relationship. It's not that we that that our biology should be our boss, but it is that our biology can't be denied without negative consequences happening from
Yeah,
that. And
exactly right.
and then what you're pointing out is that the the risk reward ratio changed when women became able to take charge of their procreation timing and income creation as well. And that kind of has thrown relationships into a state of confusion about, well, how do we honor our biology in this changing societal situation?
Yeah, and then it makes it worse with in online dating. Most people are now meeting online. It's no longer kind of optional at a social level, and there are more distortions created by online dating. One is there are many more men on online dating sites, so you have a gender imbalance immediately. Second of all, since men are always going to be the ones making the initial approach, that's pretty universal across all time and societies. um, it's much easier to approach. I just have to swipe left on you. So there's a consequence free approach behavior, which is like turning the volume of men's approach online up to 11, or actually 111. So every woman, no matter how attractive she is now getting inundated with connection requests. And then on top of that, there's stranger danger. Women are, have this fundamental need to be safe. That's, often unstated, but also operating in the background. So safe from other men, safe from their man, actually, and any violence coming from them. And so women automatically rate strangers lower. And guess what? Online, everyone's a stranger. So you get, on a 10-point scale, a couple of points knocked off for being a stranger. And then there's that illusion of optionality. And we talked about the overloading expectations on what you want, ideally in your perfect relationship for your Pinterest board. And you put all that together, and there's this, that creates massive distortions too.
Mm-hmm. So we have uh, kind of an unrealistic idealization of what a potential partner might be, which we also touched on in the first segment, and then we have the challenge of online dating being so prevalent these days, where the ratio of men to women is way off. It's skewed in the direction of far more men than women, and so the result of that is that women again end up getting inundated with requests, And they've got stranger danger as well. And what I want to say parenthetically is that there are an increasing number of men who have stranger danger too about women,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because
I've noticed a bit of that as well.
yeah, I've seen that on the rise, on the increase. And uh, so, but the danger, the flavors of danger are different. Like, the many women are simply worried about their physical safety, right? And not as many men tend to be concerned about their physical safety with women,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they
we deal with physical safety in bursts. The lion's attacking me or another man is attacking me, but women have that undercurrent of a man can impose his will on me at any point physically, and that's what I underappreciated. And again, speaking with my co-author Limor, I came to realize is that that's really kind of the leitmotif for a lot of women, whether it's conscious or not.
yeah, yeah. And it needs to be conscious both for women and for men, because if men don't understand this, they're not going to know how to be nurturing in ways that feel like nurturance to a woman.
Exactly right. They won't be able to make a woman feel safe, which is the number one prerequisite for any intimate relationship.
Right. And so we've got these two different versions of what is safety. The physical safety version for many women and fewer men, and the emotional support safety um, desire of many men. They want to know that the woman they're involved with has their back.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that when I say safety for women, at a minimum, it's physical safety, but they also feel they want to feel heard, emotionally supported,
Yes.
both in terms of provisioning and attention and so on, and being treated well. That's universal. I mean, who wouldn't
And a
want
lot
that?
of men define nurturance from a woman as the woman not impinging on his freedom to do what he wants.
Yeah, that's a very narrow view in my judgment.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I see it. And so I wanted to make sure that we touched on that briefly in this segment as well. So we've got we've got all of these evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology dimensions that are in play that aren't being looked at in a conscious, non-judgmental, oh, this is just how our biological wiring is kind of way. And after another short break, we'll get to the heart of the matter, which is what to look for in a solution that enables people to date more successfully and build durable relationships more effectively. I'm Dr. David Gruder. This is the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and we'll continue momentarily. And we're back. Before the break, my guest, who is dropping a carpet of controversial truth bombs about dating and relationships, Tim Ash, and I delved into less recognized but vitally important root causes of broken dating and floundering relationships that are revealed by evolutionary psychology. And as I mentioned in this segment, we'll reveal ingredients to look for when you want to develop dating and relationship building effectiveness. So, Tim, what ingredients should people be looking for when they want to become successful daters and relationship builders in today's world?
Well, I have several, but the one that I want to start with, I think, is the most fundamental. Our superpower as a species, what makes us different from other great apes, is that we're cultural learners. We didn't physically adapt to all the different environmental niches that we inhabit. We decided to learn from our tribe about how to survive in that environment. And that cultural learning is what gets passed on, and that's our superpower. It's kind of a life hack, if you will, or an evolutionary hack. So our brains take a long time to wire up, and it's filled with local culture, whatever our surrounding tribe tells us is true, and we consider that ground truth. So one of the biggest things to look for is what you're relying on, is that learned culture, or is it true across all societies and across all time? Because then, if that's the case, then we're talking about the real evolutionary biology and psychology. So I'm going to do, if you don't mind, just a quick run through of just cultural ideas we have in our heads. Now, you might violently disagree with some of these. You might be cheering for some of them, but just listen to this. Okay. Men are
Yeah.
all violent rapers. Women carry original sin. Women should be financially independent. Gender is a social construct. Sex before marriage is a moral failure. Virginity is a tool to control women. The nuclear family is the foundation of civilization. Child-free living is a selfish lifestyle. Having children is the highest purpose of a woman. You get the point. I mean, some of those are going, ouch. Others are going, yeah, exactly. But the thing that they share in common is they're all just cultural beliefs. This overlay that you learn from the surrounding soup of your tribe. And we live in this complex civilization and overlapping multiple tribes. But the point is, we picked up all this cultural stuff and we think it's bedrock when it's not.
Okay. So we've got cultural beliefs that we are in the soup with in whatever culture we're in, because our superpower as a species is that we're cultural learners. And so there was a term that used to be quite popular. I hear it used very, very rarely nowadays, which is ethnocentrism. And it's not just ethnic, it's that cultural centrism that ends up unconsciously in this kind of arrogant posture that my culture's beliefs are ultimate universal truth rather than my culture's beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And
Yeah. Those naked people running around in loincloths, they're so primitive and misguided. They really need our advanced civilization. When in fact, tribes that are communal and connected and interacting with each other, there's much higher happiness among those kind of communal setups right now than in Western society. So it's, and yet we have this arrogance about it. That's just one example, obviously, but yeah.
yeah, actually, you're reminding me of a matriarchal culture in an archipelago on the Atlantic Caribbean side of Panama, called the Cuna.
Mhm.
And this matriarchal culture is such a high happiness culture, and they really value education. So as a high happiness matriarchal culture that values education, they find ways to send their most promising students abroad for a college education. And
Mm.
those students end up going very often to very prestigious universities like Cambridge and Oxford and some of the universities in the States, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens is that the majority of them end up returning back to their home culture, not because they were struggling economically in the Western world. They were actually getting all kinds of great job offers because of the prestigious universities they were graduating from, but because life felt empty and they didn't feel happiness. And so they would go back with their great education to their own indigenous culture and live out their lives there because they elected happiness over materialism.
Yeah, and that's a perfect tie-in into something else that I want to mention as kind of like what to look for in root solutions. And that is that this assumption that we don't need each other, that it's a zero-sum game and we're fighting, and if women get this, then men lose that. If men gain something, then women lose it. That's ridiculous. So again, there's a competition built into evolution. It's always trying to make things better, and that means it's competitive. So, but that doesn't mean it's a zero-sum game. And to think that we can do without each other and we don't deeply need each other, I think is a huge mistake. We need each other at the level of couples, at the level of community, and so on. That's, to me, we're the most highly social animal on among mammals on the planet by far. The famous Dunbar number. We formed the largest social groups between 100 and 200 individuals. The worst thing you can do to someone is stick them into solitary confinement in a prison. That's literally going to kill them and drive them insane. So we can't function alone, and we can't function without partners, and we can't function without the support of extended tribes of a few dozen people around us.
Mm-hmm. So the lie is we don't need each other.
Yep.
And the lie is also about scarcity illusion, competition, dysfunctional competition,
Yes,
zero sum game.
and I do want to point out that there is competition, and so there is. If you look at, again, just the biology of it, if you look at mitochondrial DNA, which is only passed down the mother's line, versus the Y chromosome only on the father's line, what you'll find in terms of genetic diversity is that there, in our ancestral past, there were twice as many women as men. Think about that. So that's a competition. Half the men didn't get to reproduce. That's pretty high
So there
stakes
used
stuff.
to be, this is really interesting because there used to be twice as many women as men. And now on dating sites, there are many more men than women.
Yeah, so you can see it. Well, in a way, I guess what I'm saying is we're coming back to the brutal reality of it, which is over our evolution, women got to always reproduce, or much more often reproduce. Men, not so much. It was competitive with other men, competitive. What can you offer the woman? The woman was the selector, whether to offer you the sexual opportunity. So there's kind of three phases to any relationship. The man has approach choice; he can approach. The woman has sexual choice, whether to sleep with them, and then the man has provisioning choice of how much to invest in that relationship post sex. So those
Mhm.
are the decision points. So again, if men are making the approach, but the women are saying no to everyone except the chads in today's parlance, the top men. And again, there's
Right.
lots of distortions to that happening through social media.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And the other part I want to unpack a little further is how we do deeply need each other because historically, in a lot of societies, certainly in patriarchal societies, in contrast to matriarchal, there was this notion that the man was the head of household. He was the boss of the marriage, the boss of the family, and these days that's kind of not looked on very positively by a significant segment of the population. Yet the problem solving styles that we are generally taught are either uh, compromise or coercion, right? So even when I was in grad school in couples therapy, we were taught that we had to help couples learn how to compromise with each other. And as far as I'm concerned, compromise is a vastly inferior strategy to synergy. But we're not taught how to collaborate. We're not taught how to synergize with each other in ways that bring out the best in both of us and that honor our collective, as a couple, our collective needs.
Yeah, and let's talk about that last word you just used, needs. So again, one of the ways to look for universal solutions is to focus on our needs, not our wants, not what Instagram is telling you, not the let's be a baller on a yacht or let's have that perfect yoga body or whatever society is telling you, but to focus on needs, not wants. And so again, that overloading of relationship and confusing deep evolutionary needs with a buffet of optional wants is one of the biggest problems in relationship formation right now, because what it's
Mhm.
doing is it's covering up these biological truths with this kind of optionality. Dating, even the word dating, it's like I just want that cherry on top of my life sundae. No, that's not why relationships form. They form so you could reproduce and have offspring that can reproduce. It's this brutal, relentless march of evolution.
Right. And so one of the phrases that's become popular over the past couple of decades in identifying needs is deal breakers and
Mhm.
deal makers. And when there is confusion over the difference between needs and wants, where a want is considered a deal breaker, confusion ends up resulting, and not just confusion, but blockages to relationships that might have actually met their needs.
Yeah, you're hearing this in the online dating world, that you hear this word "ick" used a lot, like, "Oh, he had bad breath," or "He wore Crocs," or, like, you're being disqualified by, like, "Oh, that's giving me an ick," as if that's a disqualifier, so we're getting so choosy and so particular that it's making it impossible to nobody will fit into that box.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like perfectionism, the perfectionism trap applied to relationship building, which isn't going to work. So, after our upcoming break, we'll return for our episode's final segment, during which I'll be asking Tim to reveal how he helps daters, relationship builders, and even businesses in business relationships, because this applies to those too,
Mhm.
benefit from the wisdom of evolutionary psychology. I'm Dr. David Gruder. This is the Reimagining Humanity's Future in Your show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and we will return shortly. Before the break, dating mastery mentor Tim Ash and I discussed ingredients to look for when you want ways to date and build relationships that are aligned with our evolutionary psychology wiring. As I already mentioned during the final segment of this episode called Primal Dating, Radical Wisdom to Elevate Relationship Building, Tim will tell us how he provides what he suggested in the last segment that you look for. So, and then I'll let you know the best way to access his amazing book that Tim and his co-author wrote on this topic. After that, we'll each share the big takeaways we hope you have gained from this episode, followed by my closing comments. So, Tim, how do you help people become savvy daters and relationship builders?
uh, well, okay, so the first thing, then again, my co-author Dr. Limor Gottlieb and I talked about this a lot. Then people don't want to hear is it's not enough to just talk about men's and women's differences, even though they're very profound. There are also differences across life stages for men and women. So the way to think about it is your relationship value, if you think of the dating marketplace or the relationship marketplace where water seeks its own level, is kind of an X. For women, it starts really high, their value in the sexual marketplace, and it declines the rest of their lives. Because for women, it's based on fertility. I mean, your peak value is at 18. By 40, when most people stop reproducing, you have the biggest drop in women's value. And it continues to go down, but it kind of flattens out. It's not so bad at the end in terms of the drop off. For men, it's the opposite. Men are useless. They're trying to figure out how to, apply their zip medicine. They're useless to women who have access to better resourced men that are older. They're useless to other men because they have no skills or knowledge. And so for men, their value peaks at around 50, it turns out. And so there's a flat peak between 40 and 60. But basically, men have to work for their power, if you will, in the sexual marketplace. It takes them decades to establish both game and charisma and the ability to attract women, but also the package that would draw a woman. And at 30 is that crossover point. That's when people talk about the biological clock. And what's happened in this society is that we're just kind of ignoring it. And women are told, okay, you can be the girl boss, you can slay the patriarchy, you can do all that career stuff. And then when you're ready, now I'm ready for a real relationship. But a lot of women are trying to do that in their late 30s, and it's just not working based on this asymmetry that I'm talking about. So it's crossing curves, and the curves cross at 30. That's the point of, on average, equal power. So one thing I would say is, if you want to be successful, play by different rules. If I have a son and a daughter, and I would probably give different dating advice to each. For my son, I would say, work your ass off, practice relationships, get better at both, become a man worth having. And for women, and again, this is, consider whether that career comes first, because you're losing most of your ability to attract the high quality mate between 20 and 30. So there's asymmetries, and people don't want to talk about them, as if your career is not a trade-off for your life satisfaction or longer term relationships. It most definitely is, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you're raising another nuance having to do with life stage differences, which is this kind of crossover where you get people attracted to other people who have a really big age difference from them. So
Mhm.
older men with younger women,
Yep.
younger women with older men, vice versa, etc. These big developmental stage gaps, and as if we don't have enough to deal with in terms of our differences as men and women and as human beings and as individuals, we've got this added challenge for those who have that life stage asymmetry that
Mhm.
can really complicate things on the one
Yes.
hand. On the other hand, I think it's an attempt to recapture dominance, for
Mm.
men who are attracted to younger women. It's like, okay, I'm going to be able to dominate you by being your mentor. I'm going to teach you and show you how life needs to be, and you're gonna love me for it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of a cultural idea you're putting on top of it, I would say. But the basic asymmetry, again, if we think of it as an X, a crossover, women start high and drop and crossover with men who start low and go high. We put that X inside of a box. What you talked about at the top of the box, highest value equal matches, would be an older man with a younger woman. They're both trading at the top of the market for them. Okay. So the man has the optionality to go after women that he couldn't go after before, and he's gonna try to lock down an equal, as it were. And that and if the woman who starts even higher than any man on average is worth more, that's where the dowry came in. That was traditional. So now, well, older woman, younger man is being given the side eye, and we're calling women gold diggers, and why is she with him? But that's the
Cougars,
traditional
cougars.
highest value setup. At the bottom, you're saying there's also older women and younger men, again, an equal value line. And that's what I call cougars playing the game on hard mode. They're just trying to kind of get the best genes before the buzzer sounds. They're not going to get the provisioning, but they can attract the younger man for the genetic upgrade. So that's equal value too. Of course, at the crossover point at 30, that's a temporary equality as well, both in terms of age and value. But the least unlikely scenarios are same age younger men and women, because women have a huge advantage. So unless you're a star athlete or your parents own half the city, it ain't happening. And then middle-aged men and women, regardless of the precipitating events, he cheated on me or whatever. What you find is that men have a massive advantage after 40, and that advantage stays with them the rest of their lives. So that's if a man is going to make a reset. You were talking about it in terms of culture, but they have optionality. So they can younger women are all of a sudden now in play. So and let's not kid ourselves about it. The reason a man humps for decades to get to be an attractive option for women is so he could have optionality with women. And so once you have that, why would you give it up? It's the same as the 18-year-old who's beating off men with a stick, not even thinking twice about it.
Yeah. So these are real challenges that especially people who are more spiritually oriented, I don't mean religiously oriented, but metaphysically oriented, really, I think, struggle with, because on the one hand, it's a mistake to deny our biological influences. And on the other hand, for people who are more spiritually or metaphysically inclined, they don't want to define their core self through their biology, but more through their version of higher wisdom, higher love, things like that.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so,
sorry,
yeah,
David, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you address that as well.
Yeah, I would. I would say that yeah, individuals, we can have a wide variety of responses to life. Put more most broadly, whether we want to be in relationships, the kind of relationships. But again, if you think that in middle age you can have a lifelong relationship, that becomes a conscious choice and not the basic wiring. So again, denying the fact that as a species, we're not lifelong monogamous, we're monogamish for periods of time long enough to raise viable offspring. Okay. And they're both sides have side bets and cheating, quote unquote, different flavors, different reasons. But that's built into us as a species, high degrees of jealousy to make sure that we don't run off and have sex too often, fall into bed with total strangers. So it's a complicated mess. And by lifting the lid of the quote unquote traditional family, all of this stuff is now bubbling up. And some of it's very dysfunctional and sick. And some of it is the opposite is, wow, I'm freed from all of these social constraints. So I can carve my own individual path now with intention, with a spiritual component, and create the kind of life that I want.
Hmm.
So it's in this freedom. There's fear and chaos and possibility, I would say.
Yes, yes, I love that's a cool word, monogamish. Um,
Well, we have whole chapters on that in the book. Yeah.
cool. So Tim co-authored a truly groundbreaking book called Primal Dating: Evolutionary Keys to Better Intimate Relationships. You can learn all about it and order your copy through primaldating.com. That's primaldating, primaldating.com. Tim, in one non run on short soundbite sentence, what's the big takeaway you are hoping people have gotten from this episode?
Uh, I hope you'll dig into the deep asymmetries of evolutionary psychology and operate from reality rather than your cultural overlays.
Mm. And thank you for that. And mine is that what most people know about dating and relationship building is wrong. And what you're offering, what you and your co-author are offering is a way to fill in gaps so that you can be a more effective dater and relationship builder.
Yeah,
Um,
we actually have guides for men and women, and you should read both of those parts of the book too. But because we're talking about these asymmetries, you need different advice for men and women.
and that's why you cover those both of those guides in this book.
Exactly
So
right.
again, make sure you get your copy of Primal Dating: Evolutionary Keys to Better Intimate Relationships. All the details, as I said, are at primaldating.com. Thank you so very much, Tim, for bringing your wisdom to the world and for being here on my show.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure, David. Always so much fun to have you pick at my brain.
Yeah, it's fun to do that actually. And thank all of you for joining me for this episode of Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours on the X Zone Broadcast Network. This has been Dr. David Gruder, the polymath of human potential and societal psychotherapist, who equips leading edge leaders, influencers, and you with impactful resilience that makes it possible for humanity's most spiritually elevated future to emerge at last. I invite you to explore my main website, drgruder.com. That's DRGRUD as in David, ER, drgruder.com, where you'll find a link to watch or listen to all of this show's episodes, as well as a link to the Center for Enlightened Self Sovereignty, which is helping to dissolve divisiveness by reuniting individuals, businesses, nations, and humanity so we can at last usher in the age of what I call spiritual self sovereignty that serves us all. The world needs you. Your nation needs you. Your loved ones need you. You need you. Boost your impact in helping the future you most want to emerge. I enthusiastically invite you to tune in next time for another spell-busting, uplifting, and actionable episode on how together we can and will build a better future for ourselves and for humanity.